Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Pulse Policy Secure Network Visibility. We'll take questions at the end of the presentation. To ask a question, click on the Ask a Question tab above the presentation console. But feel free to submit your questions at any point during today's presentation. Presenting today is Lisa Lorenzen, Pulse Secure's Principal Solutions Architect. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Craig. Nice to be back. Today we're going to talk about the network visibility and actually a whole range of visibility into users and resource access and endpoint platforms and endpoint health that are all enabled by Pulse Policy Secure. So Policy Secure is really designed to address a common set of challenges that we see today. One of those is the desire to enable the mobile workforce, and that could be someone like me who works from home and travels, or it could be bringing your own device, which is again someone like me. I have a personal laptop and a personal phone that I use for my corporate access, both over the VPN and on site. So because I am the sysadmin of my own devices, which if it doesn't scare you, it should, that presents a challenge to Pulse Secure. How do they balance the security of the information and the network against the desire to make me as productive as possible? And one of those answers is by providing secure access to me across my various devices, across my various locations, and to the various types of resources I need access to. Another aspect of the challenge today is compliance. Compliance is a big driver for a lot of the network security initiatives going on today, both internally, because an organization desires to ensure that they're as secure as possible, but also externally when it's driven by regulation or by requirements of corporate relationships, et cetera. So the goal for Policy Secure is to help address these challenges. And we do that by focusing on secure access that is mobility ready and comprehensive and easy to use. One of the cornerstones of secure access is visibility. We need visibility to enable good access control decisions. We also need visibility to provide detailed reports on who's doing what and to ensure that endpoints are compliant with policies and user behavior is also compliant with their access restrictions and what's authorized for their role. Policy Secure uses context-aware policies that can take into account the user's role, the state of the device, the location, the time of access, all these different aspects, even behavior, to make intelligent, dynamic access control decisions across a range of platforms from BYOD to corporate devices and from mobile devices to more traditional laptops and desktops. And because BYOD presents its own set of challenges, we also have to consider things like, how do you get a BYOD device on the network? How do you get it provisioned with the certificates, the configurations, and all the different pieces you need for it to participate securely in a corporate network? And how do you integrate it with an existing infrastructure? So we're trying to provide visibility, granular control, and simplified deployment. The Policy Secure framework is pretty straightforward. You start off with devices that need to access resources. That's the common ground regardless of what you're trying to protect. Policy Secure's policy server sits in the middle, and it pushes down, it checks with the policy database, and it also authenticates users against backend AAA to identify what users should be mapped to what roles, possibly based on what platform they're coming from and the health state of that platform. Once we've got a user mapped to the role, we can provision enforcement through both Layer 3 network segmentation with firewalls and also through Layer 2 network admission control with existing switches and wireless. This can be augmented by the ability to query a profiler that will help give more information about the end device to complement the information that we already have about the end user. Additional information can be provided by integrating behavioral and other assessment information like location or scan results from sensors in the network So these sensors could be things like SIMs, or they could be other components that participate in the standards ecosystem for security automation to share this information. We also use the same open standards to enable seamless, transparent access control for both remote users as well as the local users. And we can tie into mobile devices and mobile device security through integration with backend MDM to acquire compliance information and details like what the device is under management. So the Pulse Secure framework should really be thought of as a toolbox. We have a variety of tools to address a variety of use cases, and which of these tools are useful depends on what you're trying to accomplish. In our previous webinars, we did a little bit of a deeper dive into both the admission control and the network segmentation scenarios. Today we're going to talk about some of the benefits that Policy Secure delivers. The first of those benefits is visibility, the improvement of understanding who's on your network. Another benefit is secure mobility, extending seamless access control and secure resource access to all sorts of platforms, all types of locations. A third benefit is obviously the ability to both ensure and prove regulatory compliance, sometimes requiring the ability to prove what you're doing to an auditor can be as important as being able to do it in the first place. And all of this is enabled by comprehensive access control that extends across remote and local users, wired and wireless, personal and corporate devices. Today we're going to drill down into the visibility benefit. Visibility is really the foundation for any kind of access control deployment, and really the foundation for network security itself. If you don't understand who is in your environment, what is in your environment, what resources they're trying to access, it's very difficult to develop the appropriate secure access mechanisms and access control policies. So visibility is really the foundation on which the security policies are laid. And then visibility also enables you to respond to audits, to demonstrate that the controls that you have in place are working, that only authorized users are accessing sensitive or protected resources. And visibility also enables deeper investigation into traffic flows and user behavior, so that if there's incidents or anomalous traffic, instead of only understanding, well, this IP address sent this packet, now you can say this traffic originated from this device, which was operated by this user, and the device at the time was compliant with the health checks, so this is either a zero-day problem or possibly a behavioral issue. So visibility is really a key feature of any network security deployment. The primary output of visibility is better context. Visibility allows you to understand who is on your network, what roles they play, what ties them to those roles, and what requirements may be applied to them. So for example, you may have a user who is authenticating with an Active Directory credential that attaches them to certain Active Directory groups. And based on those groups, they're allowed to access particular resources, but there are specific compliance requirements for the endpoints they're coming in from. And when we talk about those endpoints could be traditional desktops and laptops. They could be mobile devices, tablets, smartphones. We also have to deal with the variety of other endpoints that exist that are what we call headless, with no user piloting them. Anything from printers, phones, ATMs, IP-enabled security cameras, kiosks, HVAC, special purpose equipment like medical imaging devices or industrial control system components. So having visibility into the types of devices that are on your network and the behavior of those devices is really critical. All of that is augmented by visibility into the compliance state of these endpoints. And that could be whether a device is patched, whether it's up to date with any kind of security software, whether it's configured correctly, whether it's an appropriate device, You know, if it's a personal device versus a corporate device, if it's the type of device that's allowed in this segment of the network. So there is a lot of visibility in compliance. And another aspect of context is location. Users could be remote or local. In some environments, there may be sensitive physical areas of the network, whether that's a manufacturing floor or a SCIF. And so being able to identify location helps to determine the context of a user traffic. And the final major component of context is behavior. So behavior could be behavior on the network. Why is this device suddenly sending a bunch of packets that it wasn't sending yesterday? Or it could be application and resource access. This user is only authorized to access not sensitive areas of the network. So why are they trying to get into resources in the PCI containing segments? Once we assemble all of this information, the next question is how can we see into it and address it? And there are a number of ways that Policy Secure presents this information. The first and simplest way is local visibility. So Policy Secure has an on-device dashboard and some simplified reporting, historic information for 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month. When you look at these dashboards, you can see the appliances that the end users are connecting to, the state of the endpoint, and you can actually drill down. So if you're looking at a report on compliant versus non-compliant endpoints, you can drill down to see more information about particular endpoints. So beyond that local visibility, the next step is global visibility. And Policy Secure is managed by our centralized management solution, Pulse One. Pulse One is an ongoing project to provide centralized visibility, management, monitoring, and other services to the Pulse Secure suite of products. For Policy Secure, we're starting off with visibility into appliance health and information about the devices. And future phases of Pulse One will incorporate more information about endpoint visibility and the compliance of the endpoint security alerts in the network. So Pulse One, release 1.6, just came out recently. And in particular, it allows you to drill down into the state of the Policy Secure and Connect Secure appliances. So you can see CPU utilization, you can see the number of connected users, you can see information about the licenses provisioned to that device. And then once we go beyond the initial appliance-focused visibility, we will also get into visibility into endpoints and end users. So we're going to walk through some standard usage scenarios, and in this step, we're going to focus on how visibility is both provided by and supportive of those scenarios. And these should look familiar if you've attended any of our other webinars. So the initial scenario is a basic access control enforcement scenario. You have a user who connects to the network, and perhaps they're logging in from an unpatched device. I went on vacation, I put my laptop in a drawer, I pulled it back out, and I walked into the office, sat down, and plugged it in. So Policy Secure is able to identify that the device is uncompliant and instruct that switch to drop me into a quarantine VLAN. So I can now run the patch updater, I can update any security software that's required, and I can remediate the compliant state of my endpoint. Now I've got full network access, and Policy Secure can instruct the switch to put me into a production VLAN, to apply whatever other attributes like filters or QoS are appropriate, and can also provision role-based access through the firewall. So the end result is that I can access the appropriate resources, but I'm still blocked from accessing resources that aren't authorized for my role, the state of my endpoint, etc. Visibility plays an important role in this scenario in several ways. We get to see who is connecting, what type of device is connecting, the compliant state of the endpoint, where it's connecting into the network, and all of this information is associated with that active user session. As a result, we can do things like identify a user who's trying to access unauthorized resources. We could also see if an end device is regularly going onto the network in a non-compliant state. So maybe there's some education that needs to be done or some updates to the local software that's not being automatically updated. And we also get visibility into the identity of the traffic associated with traffic passing through the network. So normally, if you were looking at a firewall to see information about access to protected resources, you would see a source IP address and the destination of the resource. In this case, because we have an identity associated with that IP address, the firewalls are able to provide information about the user who's accessing the resource rather than just the source IP. So all of this can be fed into a SIM and used to provide detailed information about the behavior of a particular user, or it could be providing information that can be used in an audit to demonstrate that only authorized users are accessing a particular resource. So visibility is both an input into this usage scenario and an output of the scenario. So that's all well and good when you have a laptop with a user on it, but what about the variety of devices that are coming into the network that don't have a user? And in this case, you have these devices and you assemble a database of the different endpoints that are seen in the network. And this could be done either manually by an administrator or it can be done automatically by a profiling solution. So when an unmanaged device connects to the network, the switch will query policy secure based on the MAC address since there's no user identity. So we can look up that MAC address in this backend database and identify what role is appropriate for that device. Once the device role has been assigned and the device is on the network, the other half of that is how do we really know that this device is what we think it is? When you come onto the network with a MAC-based authentication, the big risk is MAC spoofing. It's very simple to take a netbook, flip over the printer, clone the MAC address onto the netbook, and plug it into the same port as the printer. When that device enters the network, it'll look like a printer. It has the right MAC address. But as soon as it starts doing anything that a printer wouldn't do, like sending traffic to profile the network, any kind of reconnaissance, running Nmap, or trying to access things that aren't the print server, that behavior is now no longer appropriate for the unmanaged endpoint. So once that unauthorized behavior is detected, the profiler can signal policy secure, and policy secure can take appropriate action to restrict access to that endpoint because the behavior doesn't match what we think it is. So again, visibility is both an input into and an output of the scenario. Understanding what devices are in the network, what types of devices they are, what types of access they ought to have, allows us to apply appropriate access control policies and then to provide information out about MAC spoofing or any kind of unexpected behavior. It may be that you have a printer and that printer is configured to reach out to the internet to the vendor website to look for updates. Perhaps the organization doesn't want a printer to be updating itself, so it may be appropriate to see that traffic and say, okay, this is legitimate traffic from the printer, but we want to block its access to the outside world because we want to update the printer ourselves. So there's a variety of visibility contributions to unmanaged device control. A third scenario is the seamless access control for remote access and local users that is enabled by the integration of our Connect Secure SSL VPN with Policy Secure. So in this case, instead of coming into the office, this is my life. I connect from the road. Maybe my device is unpatched. Maybe I need to update my antivirus definition. And in this case, the SSL VPN, instead of the NAC policy server, is the one that detects that uncompliance and either quarantines me or instructs my device to remediate itself. Once I'm remediated, then Connect Secure allows me to form a VPN tunnel, and now I'm on the network. When I try to send traffic through the network segmentation devices, normally I would have to authenticate again to Policy Secure, because while I am authenticated to the VPN, I'm not yet authenticated to NAC. But in this case, because we're able to do session federation between the SSL VPN and NAC, Policy Secure is able to build a session for me based on my authentication, my role mapping, and the information in Connect Secure. And so when I try to send traffic to appropriate resources, my session is federated and I have seamless access. So in this case, we have all the same visibility benefits as the original access control scenario. But we also have the additional benefit of understanding what the remote user is actually accessing. So when you come in over a VPN, it can be a challenge to understand what traffic the user is sending over the VPN tunnel because the tunnel is encrypted. Having an identity associated with the user session and the IP address in the tunnel means that you can correlate a user's remote access with a user's local access to see all of the user's behavior on the network. Finally, we have the coordinated threat control scenario. And this is the same concept as the unmanaged device access for behavior monitoring, but it extends to normal users and piloted endpoints as well as unmanaged endpoints. So we have an authorized endpoint accessing network resources. And it's compliant, it's the right device, it's in the right place, but it attempts some form of unauthorized access. This could be a scenario where an end user has opened a phishing email, and maybe their PC is compromised, and so they have some kind of remote access Trojan that's allowing an attacker to control their PC, and their PC is now trying to access resources in the environment that are unauthorized or abnormal. So here again, you can have some kind of sensor, in this case probably a SIM or an IPS, that would detect this unauthorized behavior, signal it to the policy server, and the policy server can again correlate the behavior, identify the active session for that user, and restrict their access. So this is a really interesting application of visibility because it allows you to see things like the remote access Trojans, the rats, and behavior that may not be authorized but is coming from an expected endpoint, an authorized user, and it's indicating some kind of threat beyond just something that might have a virus, or a user might be trying to access resources that they don't understand they shouldn't be getting to. So Policy Secure offers a solution that's built on open technology. It's a multi-vendor solution that is an overlay onto your existing network infrastructure. So we can work with any 802.1x enabled switch or access point. We can work with Juniper or Palo Alto firewalls. And we have the flexibility to integrate into the network that you already have. It provides flexible, context-aware security across wired and wireless connections, at admission and during the whole duration of the session, wherever the user is trying to go in the network, and across both mobile and desktop devices and across personal and corporate devices. This allows us to offer a one-stop NAC and BYOD solution with a unified client. So no matter how I access the network, I have a consistent user experience. Policy Secure has a number of strengths that allow us to address the challenges that we see in today's enterprise. Automated onboarding, automated incident response, reduce the load on security administrators, help desk, network operators by enabling them to focus on exceptions and focus on critical details rather than the day-to-day desire to provision a device or to quarantine an uncompliant device and allow it to remediate itself. We have a single solution that applies to both corporate and personal devices, and it gives seamless mobility with back-end integration to Mobile Iron and AirWatch for MDM visibility. And then from a standpoint of the user perspective, the comprehensive policies that can apply to both the SSL, VPN, and NAC mean that I have the same user experience, whether I'm coming in from my home, from a hotel, from a customer's guest network, or sitting in a cubicle at Pulse Secure's headquarters. Our strong focus on security goes back over a decade, starting off with the original Neoterra's SSL VPN solution that evolved into the NetScreen and Juniper NAC solution, and has been steadily improving and extending to apply to different use cases. So we have deployments that have been out in the world for many years, securing mission-critical infrastructure in production environments. Craig, do we have any questions from the audience?
We do. We have a few in the queue right now. First up, can Pulse Secure monitor / detect a user's BYOD laptop that does not have the latest update to their OS or basic apps like MS Office?
Absolutely. So Pulse Secure has a host checker functionality, and the host checker can be run as part of the Pulse client, or it can be run in a clientless application through a web-based connection. And in either way, we have the ability to take a look at the patches, patch level of the endpoint, the OS level, the application patches. So you can use a predefined host checks that are built into the device, or if you want to check something that isn't in the predefined host checks, you also have the ability to create custom host checks, and these could be based on registry keys, or they could actually be based on open standards that allow you to create detailed health checks or detailed checks in the environment.
Great, thanks, Lisa. The next question, Juniper had a profiler, but Pulse Secure doesn't. What happened to it?
Oh, that's a great question. So the Juniper profiler was an OEM of a solution from Great Bay called Beacon, and the Beacon solution offered endpoint profiling and behavior monitoring. When Juniper spun out Pulse Secure and we became an independent company, that OEM did not carry over from Juniper to Pulse Secure. So we do still have a relationship with Great Bay. Our products have been deployed together in many environments to provide a integrated endpoint profiling, behavior monitoring, and network admission control solution. So we still work with Great Bay. We still have all the benefits of the years of testing and deployment. We're just working with them as a standalone company today.
Thanks, Lisa. So it looks like we have one more in the queue. Does your NAC have a monitor-only mode? We don't have enough information yet to be comfortable turning on enforcement.
Oh, that's a common challenge. Yes, so Pulse Secure can be deployed for monitor-only, and there's a variety of approaches to that, depending on whether you're doing admission control or network segmentation or both. So from an admission control standpoint, the simplest way to enable a monitor-only functionality is to define everything you want to look at and just not configure any enforcement action. So for example, if you're doing 802.1s, you would define your host checks and all the information you want to gather, but regardless of the outcome of the health check, the user would still be allowed onto the production network. And this is a very common deployment model for a phased approach to admission control, where you want to start off by identifying who would get on the network without difficulty versus who might be uncompliant. And that way you can go and address any devices that are uncompliant before you turn on enforcement and block them from the network. Some environments, some deployments never go past this. We do have a small percentage of our deployments that are visibility only, monitor only. The same goes for the Juniper firewall integration. Juniper firewalls have a audit mode where the firewall will log the user identity associated with traffic, and they will log the action that would have been taken, but the traffic will be permitted. So for both admission control and network segmentation, you do have the ability to operate in a monitor-only mode to give visibility that can either be used to build the confidence you need to get to enforcement, or it may just be an end in itself.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. That's all the questions we have in the queue.
All right, thanks. Well, there's more information about Policy Secure on our website, and in our upcoming webinars, we will explore some of the other benefits of Policy Secure, such as regulatory compliance, secure mobility, and comprehensive access control. So I hope you'll join us.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.